This is the Connecticut Water Guy Hour. And now here's your host, Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy.
Hi, I'm Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy, and welcome to the Water Guy Show. Today, you've got Paul in the office in the studio here, and I am Paul with the Connecticut Advanced Water Systems office here in Richmond, actually over by the Richmond Airport. And we've also got our co-host over here.
Hello, everybody.
Fantastic. So, got a couple of different voices to listen to today here, but we do water, as you might imagine by the name of the show here, and it's kind of funny because we're here to inform, educate, and hopefully change your life for the better. So, before we kick it all off, if you're on the website and you're just looking for something to do while you're listening, you can check us out at connecticutrichmond.com. There's a whole bunch of interesting information in there that if we don't cover exactly what you're hoping that we're going to cover today, you can do some digging and find out just about anything related to the water that comes into your home. Or if you want to give us a call, we've got a team over there in the office that Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 5:30 is the best time to reach us at 877-60-WATER. That's 877-609-2837. But this is, we're quite a few episodes in at this point. And it's kind of funny because right when I think I know exactly what we're going to talk about this particular week, some stuff comes up in the office that I just freak out and go, wow, that's so interesting. I've got to talk about that this week. So today, we're just going to kind of keep it general because I'm assuming that a lot of folks probably haven't heard the first few episodes. And if you haven't heard those first few episodes, we are in the process of finalizing the podcast. So for us that are not into the podcasting, it's one of those strange worlds that you just don't go jumping into unless you really want to figure out what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
But the podcasting, it's cool because it's like, in most cases, it's free, recorded, basically this entire show. But you can play it at your leisure. You can pause it, play it again if you want to hear something a second time. Whereas on the radio, obviously, if you missed it, then you're kind of hoping we'll bring it up again.
Out of luck, pretty much in that case. But
yeah. Well, that's how we grew up. Is if you missed it on the radio, you were just out of luck. So we had to pay attention when we were growing up. Sound like my dad. So today we're going to talk about incoming water into your house and how do you know you have a problem? What are signs that you might have problems with your water or want to fix your water or get your water just improved or feel better about it? So there's a few things and really it comes down to our senses. The first most obvious one is if you see that the water is not clear, then you probably have an issue. So if your water isn't clear, and this always blows my mind when I go out to a house and I see somebody that one of the first things that we do after we kind of get to know the customer and what their overall goals are going to be is we obviously get a sample of their raw water. And we do that for a bunch of different reasons because we obviously you don't know how to treat something if you don't do an examination of it first. So one of the things that we do is the white bucket test. And the white bucket test is kind of what it sounds. We run the water, make sure it's nice and flushed out to eliminate other problems like blown bladder tanks or rust in the lines and things like that. But we run the water and fill up a 5-gallon bucket. And if you can't look down in that white bucket and it look pretty much almost a bluish tint, then we know that there's something in the water that's not perfect. So some of the different things, if you have this problem, and if you don't use a white bucket, almost everybody has a tub, like a white tub or a toilet somewhere in the house. So you'll know if you look in there and it's clean, and you look in there and it's not clear, you can't see to the bottom, that your water really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
it's one of those, like I'm saying, it blows my mind. I can't tell you, about once a month, we run into a situation where we go out and somebody's got literally like brown water coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you just wouldn't believe it. If I had brown water coming out for a second, I'd be freaked out going, what in the world is wrong? But
On the phone with somebody asking what's wrong with my water.
yes.
Yeah. Even like that kind of like frothy, milky look that
Yeah.
it has sometimes when you let it sit for a little bit.
Yep. Pretty much anything that's not crystal clear
Yeah.
is cause for an alarm. But a lot of times these folks that call me up, sometimes they're brand new. They just bought the house and this is some brand new thing they've never seen before. But a lot of times they've been in the house for 10, 15 years in some instances. And I just can't imagine having brown water for 10 or 15 years and just assuming that that's normal. So brown water is not normal. If you got like a brownish, orangey tinted water, it's most likely ferric iron. And that's kind of a fancy way of saying that you got little teeny tiny rust particles in your water. So it gets, I like to like give everybody some little memory aids because it's always hard for me to remember because iron can show up in your water and it could be crystal clear and you can't even see it, or it could show up in the water and it could give it some color. So if it's in the water and it's crystal clear, you can't see it. Some people call that clear water iron, or the technical name is ferrous iron. So if you can remember that ferrous iron is dissolved in the water, ferrous has an S, dissolved has an S. That's how, if you look at somebody's water and they say, I've got iron, and you look and you see that it's clear, you go, oh, you must have ferrous. So you'll sound like an expert at that point. But if that water has an orange tint to it, then you've got some what we call ferric iron, which is what happens when the dissolved iron oxidizes and basically forms little tiny rust particles. So everybody knows what rust looks like, but almost microscopic sized particles of it. Usually they're about 5 to 10 microns in size, but it can definitely make the water a whole different color, and with huge levels of it, it can come out looking like mud. I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know how people like can put up with that. You can't even do laundry. You can't do anything. So
I just kind of thought if you want to memorize it as well, you said a ferric.
Ferric.
Yeah, so you can think of it as when you see that colored water, you go ick, ferric.
That I didn't think of it that way. Yes, we have exactly the same kind of memory aid.
Oh yeah.
So ferric ends in a C, right?
Yeah.
If you can see it, it's ferric.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So it's, but I like the ick. That's another one that I like simple. So ferric ends in a C. If you can see it, you've got ferric.
Absolutely.
So that's usually the orange stuff. A lot of people are really familiar with iron because that's one of the most common contaminants that are out there on wells, and they're not really particular to deep or shallow wells. We've had deep wells that have tons of iron in it. We've had shallow wells that have tons of iron. It's just the luck of the draw at that point. Something else that like a yellowish tint could be is something called tannins. So tannins are, it's basically when the water comes in contact with organic matter, like tea. Tea's a great example. So there's nothing really in the water. It just pulls out some color from the tea, some of the tannins that are in the tea leaves, if you've heard that term. And it's the exact same thing. We don't see too many tannin situations around here. I think we've got maybe 5 in our service area out of this office. Tannins are no fun. It requires special equipment to pull that stuff out. And unfortunately, when you start messing with tannins, most of the ways that we deal with tannins cause other problems that have to be fixed. So to fix tannins, you got to make another problem, and then you got to fix that problem. It's no fun. So if you have tannins, that's bad. But usually tannins are found where we have houses that are close to swampy areas, for example, because that's, like some peat moss. that kind of
Right.
stuff. But yeah, tannins are a yellowish tint if you've got that. So if they can be mixed in with other things like iron and make them really hard. We have special testing methods that we use to actually separate the tannins from the iron, so that we know exactly how much of each one might be contributing. But the other thing, we just generally term it as turbidity. It's a fancy word for just not clear. It's not clear. It's just cloudy. There could be really tiny things in there. There's some other real crazy. There's what's called an SDI test, which is a silt density index. And silt is it's really fine, and it can stay suspended for a little bit of time, which causes some of that cloudy look. Usually the turbidity isn't something we could really mess with too much without going into ultrafiltration, but because it is overall it's pretty rare. But I bring it up because sometimes you can't even see a real bad silt density index, but it can be catastrophic on some equipment that we might put in. We've got a customer up in Ashland that has whole house reverse osmosis, and because their water is coming out of the ground just horrifically bad, but it's been that way for like 5 years. And reverse osmosis membranes, like a drinking water system, they purify, and then we put it in storage tanks, and then the whole house basically lives off this pure water in tanks. But if you have a high level of silt, this special silt density index, then you got real bad problems when it comes to membrane life, because those are not cheap to replace. But anyway, to get you back on track here. So those are like the three real things that we see in terms of water that's not clear. So if you have any of those, give us a call. We can kind of walk you through the rest of it. So that's being able to just see it. If the water has a weird smell, that's no good. If water stinks, there's almost never a good reason for the water smelling, unless you're out in the hot sulfur springs of some of these states where you like to soak and pull it into your body, and has interesting effects. But in your house, you definitely do not want water that smells like anything.
Yeah.
So some of the most common smell that we get is a rotten egg smell. We get that call probably every other day of somebody that has a rotten eggy smell. And that's a tough one, because the rotten eggs it's caused by hydrogen sulfide. But that's what you smell, but what is making the hydrogen sulfide is where it gets really complex. And you can really go down a bad road with a customer if you hit all the possible aspects of why it could smell. So we have a more conservative approach. We like to go in and try to judge where do we think the smell is really originating from, and try to attack that. But a lot of times it's coming from different places. So I don't want to lose anybody here, but the biggest reason that we get rotten egg smell is because it's coming out of the ground that way. So when we're doing our white bucket test, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we do besides looking in there and seeing how clear the water really is we'll stick our faces down in this bucket, and as it's going in there, it's aerating. So it's letting out all the dissolved gases that are in this water that was under pressure up until literally just before that bucket. So if there's a rotten egg smell, we can definitely pick it up on that, and that means it's coming out of the ground that way. So there's a few ways to go ahead and take care of rotten egg smell if it's coming out of the ground. There's aeration, there's using carbons, there's a really terrible way of doing it, using chlorine. And if you're one of the competitors listening to this show and you use chlorine, shame on you. And yes, I did say that out loud, because there is no reason to use chlorine on a well in this day and age, unless you are planning on testing that well water for trihalomethanes and other carcinogens every other day. So if you're one of these guys that has a pellet dropper that is on your deep well, disconnect that thing. I'm telling you, you will cost yourself, probably the last time that I heard back was about $9,000 to run a new well line. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the health impact of potentially poisoning the entire family with carcinogens.
Yeah, 'cause I was about to say that chlorine, that just opens up a whole different kind of problem with water, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Chlorine reacts with organics, and it creates disinfection byproducts. And they use chlorine in city water, but they also have to test that water every day, every other day, to make sure that the folks using that water aren't getting poisoned. But these guys that are out there using chlorine injection and pellet droppers, they don't ever. I would challenge anybody that's listening to this that has one of those, think back. When was the last time that person that installed that ever came out and tested your house for chlorine? And the answer is probably never, once they got paid. Yeah. We hear it all the time, and we love tearing that stuff out of there, because once folks realize that it's a ticking time bomb, they don't want it. And it's, in our opinion, it displays that that's all you got. There's some basics that are out there. Some of the plumbing supply places, I don't want to name names at them because they've got great individual components, but some of those places offer these chlorine pellet droppers and bleach injection systems to plumbers. And nothing infuriates me more when I'm in there buying parts, when I see that stuff. And I they know it. They just kind of hide their displays when I come in now, because I'm like, you still have this up? You know you're going to get sued. You just are.
Yeah.
Something bad is going to happen. You're going to end up footing the bill on it, because you've just endangered the health of an entire family. Not to mention you've destroyed pressure tanks, well pumps, all the lines coming in, all that stuff. But anyway, we can go on and on about that. But so the rotten eggy thing, if it's coming in that way, we need to address it on the way into the house. And there are some other smells that are out there. We've got sometimes we run into like a metallic smell, an earthy smell. We'll cover some more after the break, but it sounds like we're coming up to our first break here. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that write it down, go to the website while the commercials are playing. If you can multitask, ConnecticutRichmond.com, or you can give us a call, 877-60-WATER. If you go to our website, there is a chat, a live chat, not one of these robot chat things, but a real person on the other end of the chat line that you can ask some questions, and they should be pretty good. And the things they can't answer, they'll definitely put on for us first thing Monday, and we'll dig in for you. But we'll stick around. We'll be right back with more of the Water Guy Show. Welcome back. In case you've just tuned in, this is the Water Guy Show, and I'm Paul, your Connecticut water guy. And we've got Ethan.
Good morning.
And yes, so in our first segment, right before the break, if you missed it, we'll get you up to speed here. We were talking about how do you know if you have a problem with the water that's coming into your house. We don't mess with the water that's leaving the house, but if the water coming into your house is not crystal clear, or if it has an odor, there's a reason that it is not perfect, and we need to go ahead and check that out, because if it's not clear and it stinks, there's definitely something wrong. So before the break, we were really going down a road about the rotten egg smell. That's one of the most common smells that we get out of the wells, and we were talking about the water coming in having it's basically caused by hydrogen sulfide, but it's coming, if it comes out of the ground that way, which we determined by running raw water, unaerated raw water into a bucket and aerating it and basically doing the old sniff test, that'll tell us how bad the problem is and what at what levels of treatment we're going to need to put something in place to be able to treat not just how strong the smell is, but how fast you're going to be using the water. How many people are in the house, how many people might be taking a shower at the same time. These are all things that a professional water treatment company has to take into consideration. So you can't, there's no just canned answer. Everybody just wants, I got stinky water. Just give me a filter. And it's not that simple.
It's never that simple.
Never. There's flow rates and things that have to be taken into consideration, and pH and other contaminants in the water that will definitely impact how, number one, how well something is going to take care of the odor, but more importantly, how long is it going to last? So it may take care of that water great for a week, then you got to replace the whole thing. It really wasn't that good of a value. So we do run into a lot of folks that say, hey, I just got this, and a week later I've got the smell back. And we say, well, yeah, that unit's really only designed with your living situation to last about a week. So we've got professional equipment that can take care of that on the way in, all the way from a basic carbon cartridge that's designed to handle a whole house situation. We only really use that on more chlorine with very few people in the house, because really most of the problem results when people are taking baths and showers, and some of the houses, if you've got rain domes and body sprays and all the other crazy stuff that makes it look like a car wash in there, you can get some pretty high flow rates of the water. And if you can't remove the smell at the rate that the water is getting treated, then you're going to get breakthrough, and nobody wants breakthrough.
No, what's a breakthrough?
Yeah, breakthrough. Well, we call it breakthrough. It's basically when you're in the shower and you can pick up that faint rotten egg smell still.
Okay.
And that's usually because you have overrun your equipment. We see that a lot on this online garbage that folks order, because the guy on the other end of the phone, that usually is in like Florida or Texas or New Jersey. Those are the ones I love picking on because they're easy pickings. They have their sales pitch, and they're highly trained at being able to make it sound like it's a miracle fix, and it's going to work. Well, you put it in, and you don't put it in. It doesn't jump out of the box and put itself in. So then you got to hire a plumber, and then the plumber comes out there and charges. Plumbers are not cheap. There's a reason why there's more millionaire plumbers than any other profession. I got to fact check that, but that's what I heard. But yeah, once you put it in, then you find out if it works, and then you got to go through the whole warranty or complaint side, and then usually they'll say, we'll just ship it back and we'll inspect it. Well, if you've ever tried to ship back something that's heavy, you're in for a shock when you see that it costs more in shipping than you paid for the unit in the beginning.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, that breakthrough, that's what happens when you get the wrong size equipment. Or equipment that, maybe it's got a good flow rate, but it's just got a bunch of garbage in it. It's shocking the amount of scammy stuff, counterfeit stuff. On the way to the station, I got a group text that my phone has been trying to vibrate right off of my belt already here. If I didn't already mention it, this Office of Advanced Water Systems is one of 12 different offices that we have stretching. We've got Richmond, we've got Chesapeake, down in the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina, down into Georgia, and one of our newest offices out in Denver, because, yeah, I still don't understand how we ended up jumping into Denver.
I was about to say, it's a skip and a hop.
Yeah, it's not. It's hard to drive over there, but it'll be fun. But anyway, I'm one of the 12 offices, and so we're actually the largest Kinetico dealer in the world. So Kinetico products, almost nobody's heard of them because I don't want to. Hey, Culligan man, everybody's heard that. That's our age. They did a lot of marketing. Kinetico never did any real marketing. They decided instead of marketing, they're just going to guerrilla market this thing and let it get out there through dealers and word of mouth. and they were actually invented back in 1970. So we've got 53 going on 53 years with the Connecticut products, all made in the USA. But as the number one dealer in the world, we take that pretty seriously. And on the way here, one of our guys, we're constantly searching things out on the internet to just see what the competitors are out there trying to scam people with, and we found one of our units out there posted on the internet like it's absolutely a dealer selling it. And of course, it's a little cheaper. It's cheaper enough. It's probably like maybe 30-40% cheaper, but it's not installed, and turns out it's counterfeit. So these counterfeit folks, they're actually getting some stuff and they're selling it, and they know that they can't just give it away for pennies on the dollar, because everybody's going to know that the gig is up. So the sad part is they're charging a lot of money for it, but it's nowhere near the quality level, and it's fake. So if you buy that and you think you're actually going to get a warranty, you're going to be in for a shock when, number one, this stuff leaks in your house, and you go to call that company and they're amazing. They're all out of business and gone. So the warranty only is what the person offering it or the manufacturer really is. And I guess the moral of the story is here, if it sounds too good to be true, do some more digging, because it's probably not true.
Now these counterfeit units, these aren't like they're trying to put it under the Connecticut facade. They're just slapping their own kind of like Equate brand. I put in air quotes, like I like to say it.
It's not even that. They're literally putting Connecticut. They're saying that it's made. It's our drinking water system. It's actually all of our drinking water systems.
Okay.
And it's counterfeit. It's an honor system that, in order to protect the customer, Connecticut put in place way back when the internet was first started that a dealer is prohibited from selling any Connecticut products online, because the obvious solution or business strategy could be, well, I'm just going to try to develop an online presence and just sell it cheaper than everybody else. Well, the problem is professional grade stuff needs professional grade maintenance.
Right.
And if you overstep a boundary, and let's just say that this particular company supposedly is based in Florida, but you can buy it. I can make a phone number from Florida and make it look like I'm operating, from India and Florida, just as an example. So you really have no idea by the phone number. There's no way to know for sure where this company's based, but you order something from them because it's cheaper, and then you find out you need somebody to come and check something out, and they're like, oh, well, we don't have anybody in your area. So it protects our customers, our local customers, because you know that you're always going to have somebody that's going to honor the warranties.
Right.
You're going to get the service. I don't mind saying it. I was on earlier yesterday. I was actually out myself at a customer's house. I had a unit that was 5 years old, and all of a sudden it just developed a leak. It's one of those freak things. I've been doing this 8 years. I've probably seen it twice, and we install in hundreds and hundreds of these units. But if that had been a counterfeit or a dealer that was trying to operate outside of their territory, this person would be sitting there frustrated and just disgusted that they spent money on a brand where there's no local representation.
Right.
So that's if you see any Connecticut stuff offered online that is not specifically offered from us in your local area, because there's ways, with the way the internet is now, we can specifically target who sees our message so that we don't go outside of our area.
Right.
But basically, if you're seeing something that's online that says it's Connecticut, it's fake, or it's overpriced.
Right.
I will say that there appear to be some authentic Connecticut replacement filters online. And I bring this up because there may be some Connecticut customers out there that think Amazon is always cheaper. You know, that's how it started.
Right.
But I'm going to give you an example here without me getting too much in trouble. But a set of drinking water filters, a basic set, is about $100. And those last 500 gallons. So you really, the genuine ones from us are only costing a little less than 25 cents a gallon. You go to any big box, Costco, Home Depot, anywhere, and you buy your water, same water by the case, you're going to get it in bottle form, and you're actually going to pay at least 65 cents to sometimes $1.20. And if you get suckered into smart water, yeah, that is, I want to say that was like $6 a gallon.
Oh no.
You buy that and you're just desperate for something. But basically where I was going with it before I got off track there, which I do all the time, is you can get a genuine set of filters from us for roughly $100, but I found them on Amazon for like $180. So the end of this story was I had this customer that had actually, after we did the initial install, they just went online and ordered their filters on Amazon. And they did this for 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Shame on us for not, catching it, but people do what people do. And when we finally caught up with them, they had questions, or they needed something else serviced in their house. But we were in there like, we noticed you haven't been buying any drinking water filters. That's a problem because they're good for 500 gallons. And they said, oh yeah, we've been getting them from Amazon. We asked the question, well, how often have you been getting them? And I think there were like 3 people in the house, drink a lot of water, they use it for everything. So they were getting a set of filters about every 6 months. They were paying $160 a year extra.
Oh no.
For the same filters that they would have gotten from us just because they got them on Amazon. So the moral of that story is Amazon is not always the cheapest.
Yeah.
So in the case of Connecticut, our prices are actually far better than you can find. So it's the best of both worlds. The best quality, it's the best price, so that, of course, means the best value. But, man, we were all that from the rotten, eggy smell
right.
coming in. But it's kind of related because we talked about there could be some other smells on your water.
Right.
One of those smells could be a metallic smell. We do hear that over the phone because we try to get as much information as we can from people so that we know what to bring, what special testing equipment they might need. And when somebody says they've got a metallic smell, it's usually iron. And we already kind of talked about the 2 different forms of ferrous iron, which is dissolved, and ferric iron, which ends in a C, so you can see it. Those will definitely have a metallic, iron-like smell in the water. So you know it if you have water that has iron in it. But it could also have some other metals like copper, things like that. And if you actually smell the copper, you've got other problems.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you've probably got really corrosive water that's eating the inside of your pipes. And if you could smell the copper, that means it's no longer in your pipes.
Right.
So if it's not in your pipes, what's holding the water in? That's a whole nother conversation.
Additionally, if it's corroding copper piping, like what is it doing to you?
Yeah, well, that's a dangerous road to go down because it corrodes copper piping usually because it's a shallow well.
Okay.
So a shallow well, and I love going off. We'll still, don't worry, folks. We'll still end on time here. But a shallow well, you've got shallow wells and you've got deep wells. And the deep wells, I'll just explain that the deep well has a special bit that drills down and it goes through rock and granite and things like that and gets down into deeper water tables and aquifers that are coming in from other areas. A shallow well has a bigger bit, kind of like one of those ginormous bits that you would see if you're going to plant a tree, one of those augers, and it can go down until it hits rock, basically. So they don't go through rock, and then they end up, it's basically a bigger diameter hole in the ground. And if you dig deep enough, in most cases, you'll end up hitting water just with the shallow well. But your question about if it's eating the copper, usually we only see problems with copper corrosion on shallow wells, and that's because the water hasn't had a chance to really get deep into the earth where it can get buffered and the pH get fixed.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So shallow wells, for the most part, have a really low pH, which means they're very acidic. And acid and copper is basically a softer metal, and it does not like acidic water. It's a fantastic plumbing product on like city water situations in most cases, but when you start putting acidic water or pure water through it, it tends to pull out the copper, and we'll talk about that a little bit more after the break that's coming up here. But don't forget to visit us, ConnecticutRichmond.com or 877-60-WATER. That's 877-609-2837. Or if you want to play around on YouTube, Connecticut Richmond, we have our own channel, and soon to have podcasting where you can listen to not only this one, but all of our previous episodes. But stick around. We'll be right back with more of the Water Guy Show after the break. Welcome back. In case you just tuned in, this is the Water Guy Show, and I'm Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy. And
this is Ethan, the guru behind the board.
He's definitely a guru. So in this, we're in the final segment of our Water Guy Show here, and we're just talking about how do you know that you might have a problem with the water coming into your house. And we covered the fact that if it's not clear, that's a problem. And we started digging into smells because that's a pretty common thing that we run into. And we covered rotten eggy smell. We covered the metallic smell. The next one that we run into is, I can best describe it as an earthy smell. It's a very odd. You just can't I can't really describe it. It smells like dirt. Mm-hmm. It's just earthy. That has a lot to do with swamps more than anything else, and those have their own demons with them. We have one customer that not only does the water have this earthy, swampy smell, but it's also got hydrogen sulfide coming out of it, and then it can change depending on what season it is and how much rain we get. And there's bacteria that come into the house that can leave a film. It's just the worst of the worst.
Yeah, they're getting hit with a double whammy on that one, aren't they?
Yeah, I think if you live in a swamp and you get swampy water, you just know that you're going to need some professional help. But
absolutely.
We got that one. There was a lot of tuning on that particular project. But yeah, she hang in there, Holly. I know we finally made it through there, so we appreciate the fact that yours is probably one of the most challenging smell issues that we've run into in a while. But we got that one nailed. Another smell that we run into is best described as like a chemical smell. If you've ever shown up and you see some of the local lawn care people, they just get done spraying the yard and you can smell that in the air. That is kind of what I mean by chemically. It's just one of those where you go, ooh, I don't really want to breathe this. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't smell right. So we run into that, and that's usually something that I run into on either pretty much a new house. Because when they drill a well, there's some nasty stuff that is on the drilling equipment. You know, I've had 3 wells drilled at my own place, and it was nasty, and I'm sure that there's some stuff in there that probably has some odors. So pretty much that stuff needs to flush itself out. But it's yet more of a reason that no matter what, I would never just drink out of the tap without a drinking water system protecting me because of that kind of stuff. Actually, that just reminds me, last week, I didn't mention this because I didn't want to pop the surprise. We were talking about landfills last time, but I had a customer that out in Charles City that the well was literally like 10 to 15 feet away from the actual water at the edge of the bank of the James River.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if I gave that much detail last time, but the thing that I didn't mention was that their well is, when the river goes up, it literally floods the well, which means you got river water. Yeah, you got river water going in the well.
Wow.
Which that just terrifies me to begin with, because the James River is nasty. Ugh. If I fell in there with my mouth open, it'd be a bad day. But they went on to tell me that, well, when it rains a lot, the water runs brown in the house. And it completely went right by me. They're like, yeah, we do bottled water when it does that. And then I remembered thinking, you're drinking out of this when it's not brown right from the tap. So they're relying on the color of the water to tell them if the water is good to drink.
At least it's something, though.
Yeah. But at least that's their indicator. But yeah, it's just, okay. If your water ever runs brown, then you need to probably have something in place to protect your health, even when it's not brown, because the color of the water that's the easiest thing to fix. It's the stuff that you can't see that will cause you the most harm.
Right.
But yeah, I wanted to mention that I found that funny that they use the color of the water to decide whether they're going to drink from the tap or get bottles. But another smell that you might run into is the smell of a pool. And everybody that's in the city of Richmond or municipal water, they know exactly what I'm talking about. You get a big glass right out of the cold water tap and put it right up to your nose, and it'll smell like a pool. And that's because there's enough chlorine and chloramines in it to sanitize a pool.
Yep.
We prove it with testing every single time that we're out there. So if it smells like a pool, that's not good either. We need to take care of pretty much any odors that are coming out of your water. And the last thing is, so we covered, if it's not clear, if it smells funny, if it leaves evidence that there's something in the water, like stains or deposits. If you have, like, I'm going to cover a cool one that we just kind of let the cat out of the bag a little earlier with copper. If you see blue-green stains in your house, that is a sign that there is copper oxidizing almost every single time. And that copper is probably coming from the piping of your house, and it's because the water is very corrosive, aggressive towards the plumbing system, and it pulls the copper out, and then the copper gets deposited on sinks and toilets and tubs and things like that. And when it gets deposited, it gets exposed to the air. And the air, of course, has oxygen in it, so it oxidizes the copper or rusts the copper. And when copper rusts, it turns blue-green. So if you've got blue-green stains, you've got copper problems in the house. And even if you don't have copper plumbing, everybody's got some degree of brass in the fittings, like the shower valves, all the valving in there. There's some degree of brass in almost everything, shower heads. Those can be impacted as well. So usually those can be removed with a strong acid cleaner. But the more important thing is, where's that copper coming from? Because the copper is there to keep the water in the pipes. And if it's getting pulled out, then eventually you're going to have leaks. And leaks are no good.
Oh, yeah.
If you see stains or deposits that are like reddish orange, we kind of covered that. Sometimes you can see reddish orange water in, like, when it first comes out. Sometimes it is dissolved in the ferrous form. and then it oxidizes once it's exposed to air, like in the back of a toilet tank, the toilet bowl itself, a drippy faucet or a drippy tub spout is where we usually see like if somebody has iron, they'll have like some red stains.
There's like a ring on the toilet or something like
yes.
that where the water line where the water line is.
Exactly.
In the bowl.
And you'll see the trickle lines like down from where it floods. Yeah, that's usually where we can see that. But the reddish orange that usually indicates iron. Sometimes, and it's not very common, but a lot of times that where you see iron issues, you'll certain water supplies around here, black. You'll see black stains, black deposits. Up in like Lake Anna area.
Right.
And there's a lake west, I can't think of the name of the doggone lake, but I've got a customer out on this lake that's like due west of Richmond. And he's, so black, I'm getting off track again. Black stains are primarily due to manganese. So manganese is kind of like iron, but when it oxidizes, it turns black. And it can turn really bizarre. Like up in Lake Anna, for example, we got lots of customers that first thing we do is flip the top of the toilet tank off and peek in there, because that will tell us a little bit about, it's kind of like the viewing glass inside the plumbing system without actually having to go in the pipes. And you'll see like some of them will literally look like dirty motor oil water.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, the water looks black. I mean, it's a disturbing thing to see the first time you ever see it. But if you've got black in the toilet tanks, that is most likely manganese. Now, it could be something else. It could be mold or mildew, which is another pretty common thing. Throw some bleach on it, straight bleach. If it goes away, then it's not manganese. It's definitely a mold or a mildew. So if you throw bleach on it and it laughs at you, then you probably have manganese. And another rabbit hole we're going to go down here, but manganese, even though it isn't that common, it's looked at differently. It's one of those secondary maximums that the EPA puts out there, which just means that it's they can't enforce it like lead and things like that, but they put it up to the local municipalities and states to decide if they're going to make it one of those enforceable contaminants where if you exceed a certain number, they're going to make you fix it. So it's kind of funny because the EPA puts a number out of 0.05 parts per million of manganese is what they would call their maximum. So in North Carolina, for example, right over the border, the water isn't hardly any different than it is up here, but North Carolina is far above the levels of comprehension of what these things can do than Virginia is. And I'm just saying that. I know that there's a lot of Virginia folks at the departments that are going to be really mad when they hear that, but the reality is that Virginia considers manganese an aesthetic contaminant. So it's okay to mess up, to cause like your teeth to do like turn colors, and for you to have neurological impairment. Like just an aesthetic issue.
Those are a couple things that manganese in the water can cause.
So if I've sparked some like eyebrows on folks here in Virginia, rightfully so, go to our website and look on the FAQ section under manganese, and you will find that it's got Parkinson-like symptoms. It's terrifying. So, but in Virginia, they just consider it cosmetic and aesthetic.
Wow.
But you cross the border into North Carolina, and you will absolutely fail a drinking water test. I believe they raise it up. They let you get up to 0.2, which is 4 times higher than the EPA. But yeah, down there in North Carolina, even they were like, look, you don't want to have neurological impairment. That's right. More than just cosmetic and aesthetic issues. So they crack down on it right over the border. I tell folks, I'm like, well, you can. Maybe it's not as harmful here in Virginia, but everybody knows the truth that it's just we haven't quite caught up to their level of scrutiny on certain things.
Right.
But so the manganese is one of those things. Look it up. It's got some terrifying side effects, and it stains things black, which nobody likes. Black stains in the toilet. That's just never a good idea. But if you see deposits that are more whitish, those are typically hardness deposits from calcium. In the rare case, you may have some high levels of salts in your water, but most of the time it's going to be due to hardness, which is calcium. And hardness is able to be handled 100% with a water softener. So we have some pretty basic solutions for that. And then, Ethan, you mentioned the toilet a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Around the water line, that's a dead giveaway on what kind of things might be in the water that will leave a deposit, because the water line in the toilet's actually a pretty cool little experiment to watch. Because let's say you got some storms rolling through, go into your bathroom, and if you don't have anything else to do, go in the bathroom and just watch the water in the toilet. And you'll see that as the wind whips around, the water in the toilet goes up and down.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, because your plumbing system on the sewage end of it all drains, basically all poo drains downhill. Everybody kind of knows that. But it also has to have what's called a vent. So there has to be air that keeps it from kind of, hamster bottling or just, it lets it move around freely. And those vents go up and they poke through the roof. That's why if you drive by people's houses, you see those white pipes sticking up on the back of their roof usually. Mm-hmm. Most good builders don't put them in the front of the house because they look horrible. But if you see them on the back, those are all the plumbing vents. So when the pressure, like due to the wind, changes, the vents obviously change with it. And the water level goes up and down. And that's all important for me and what, my business, because every time the water level goes up, it wets the inside of the toilet bowl. Then it goes back down to normal, and that stuff evaporates and leaves behind deposits. Then goes up again and leaves more deposits and more deposits. That's why the water line always has some indications of what might be in your water. So yeah, cool little thing. When we have some storms rolling through here again, go bring everybody in the powder room and watch the toilet go up and down.
A lot of people might be able to conduct that experiment here soon, because we got a lot coming through right now.
Oh yeah. It's going to be crazy. Something related to white is the tannish. I like to call them the tan deposits. They're primarily, that's usually how we see silica. So silica, without getting too much into it, is kind of like liquefied quartz. It's kind of, I compare it to trying to clean glass off of surfaces. There's nothing out there that's going to remove glass without destroying the surface that it's on. So we've got some things out there that can take care of silica. And actually, silica is in almost every single home that we go into. So it's turned into one of our biggest nuisance contaminants here. It's not really a health thing. It's just one of those, it destroys toilets and glass shower doors and all the other things, and water heaters. So it leaves buildup and starts messing those things up. And I know we're coming to the end of our episode here, but I wanted to cover a couple of quick things on. We already covered the go in the bathroom and watch the water line move around, but your water heater is another thing that you can really get some good evidence out of. And actually, you're supposed to, if you have a tank style water heater, not one of those tankless ones, but if you got a tank style, there's always a drain valve at the bottom. Usually it needs a screwdriver to be able to turn and open the little valve, because they don't want kids just grabbing hold of this thing and opening it up. So they usually put like a screwdriver activated one. But take a regular old garden hose, and it's recommended that you do this at least once a year. So everybody should do it. I literally did it yesterday at a customer's house, and she freaked out because this water heater was only 3 years old, and we had just put a system in, but obviously all the old water in the water heater needed to be purged, and it ran for an hour, and we were having chunks and what looked like white pudding coming out of this thing. Oh, it was. I took pictures of it. It was horrific. She was just mortified that she'd been taking a bath in this stuff. But we got our water fixed now, so we flush your water heater out. Basically, hook a hose up. You don't have to change any valves or anything. Just hook a hose up and use your screwdriver and open that thing up and run it into a bucket and see what comes out. And call us, 877-60-WATER. Take a picture of it because it'll be a cool conversation when we come out to your house to try to fix that. But 877-60-WATER or ConnecticutRichmond.com is our website. Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 5:30, all the whole team's in the office. But we are dedicated to fixing your water. And I think we're just about out of time here. I'm Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy. Thanks for listening, and join us next Saturday morning for another edition of the Water Guy Show.
You've been listening to the Connecticut Water Guy Hour. Join us next week for another edition with Paul, your Connecticut Water Guy. Opinions expressed on the program may not necessarily reflect the views of station management and ownership. Portions of the recording.